Please support the channel with the link directly below that allows me to be able to provide you this information. If you like the charts, you like the indicators, please consider supporting the channels. I don't have any sponsors. I've turned those offers down. I just ask that you do what you can to help out, but I need to hear from you in order to make that work. So if you could take a moment to partner with me, anything helps. Most YouTube channels make their money through sponsorship. I don't want to do that. I don't want to sell you a bunch of stuff that you don't need. I don't want to send you to exchanges. I want to get you leveraged up to wipe you out. Just share the information that I look at every single day and that I use to make my Bitcoin decisions, trading decisions, like that kind of cutting edge information. Signals continue to nail it, then please consider supporting the channel directly below. We'll take you to a secured site. Thank you for your consideration for that. We have the Elliott wave count here. The 5-leg push higher, I think, is going to complete. That can complete next week. It can complete the week of the Fed. But I think you're going to complete it here in all likelihood. I think you're probably going to get one more thrust higher to get the divergences I've been talking about, the different indicators. I think you get the wave 2. So I think we're still getting wave 1. I think we've had the bigger count here with the wave 3, the 4. I think we're in wave 5 now, and this is our first wave of wave 5 unfolding in these 5 waves higher. And I think we'll end up pulling back to the 200 period moving average. My guess is this is going to be a smaller pullback, a thrust higher, followed by a bigger pullback, followed by a parabolic rise towards 150,000, towards 150,000 to 175,000, maybe even higher. We take our time reaching my trend line target in the weekly time frame. It is on the weekly chart. Again, I think we're headed up into this trend line right here. I think you're going to get this 5-leg push higher. I think you'll end up getting one more pop, the pullback back for the inverse head and shoulders, and then I think you're going to get this massive move higher. This could take us, if we take our time reaching it, to August, September, maybe October. If we take our time reaching it, you can go to 175,000, maybe 180 towards 190,000 easily if we take our time reaching it. If we reach it sooner, the target will be lower, but when we reach this trend line, I'm going to get very bearish on Bitcoin. I think the top will be in. Completed 5 waves, 1, 2, this whole thing being 3, 4, and now we're getting 5. That's a red count right here. 5 waves into the trend line gives us the completing of the 5 here with the red count, and that completes the whole thing is the blue 5 completing the cycle top. Now I'm looking at 2 different possibilities here. One is that we peaked at that other trend line at 112,000, and we're getting the ABC right now for the bigger pullback. Certainly possible if we start taking out this low and end up taking out the 200 period moving average here on our 4-hour chart. But it's more likely that we're not done and we get that divergence in the daily time frame on the Awesome Oscillator and the RSI and other indicators. This is the bearish count that we've already peaked with wave 1. This is a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now getting the ABC. Here's a count that I think is more likely, and that's that we get one more pop higher. We get the divergence, and I don't know that we go this high, but we could. But I think you're going to come up here. This is the 112,000 area. You could go to 112, 113. If we go up to this trend line right here, then you go higher. Know that we reach that level. I've drawn it on here just to see if we get a move up to that trend line. I don't know that we go that high. I think it's more likely we still at 113, 115,000 area here and get something like that, just slightly above this area. But this is certainly possible. Don't want to rule that out if we go to the 116 to 121,000 area. Bottom down here at the 200 period, we need to get back above the cloud in the 50. We're stowing at the cloud. We're stowing at the 50 period here in the 4-hour chart. We get a push down, then that other scenario comes into play. We get above this level, then we can get the divergence I'm looking for, followed by a bigger pullback. We get another reference point of a divergence building upon these other divergences that have formed. Likely one in the more recent price action, but I think you're going to see that happen. Still could get one more push down for 4 below the 200 and then rally back up. I think it's possible we've got a bottom here just above our 200 period moving average. I'm holding a longer term position for multiple months down at these lows here at the double bottom. I talked about that at the time, accumulating a very large position. Also playing a short term trade. That's my core hold, a longer term hold that I'm going to hold for multiple months. Shorter term trade, I'm playing this wave one. Once it's done, I might take a short position, end up getting the pop higher. If we do get the pop higher, I'm going to sell my long position, my short term swing trade, sell it into the rally, and then buy it back once we get the bigger pullback. Now, 75%, I talked to you about that on the 21st of May, the day before the top, as we rallied up into, got very close to the top. I sold 75% of my position into that rally, kept 25%, and we had this low right here. I was watching carefully, came back at the higher low, the 75% of the position back. It's a low risk entry. So still might dip below the 200, but if it looks like we're going to continue the downward slide, then I can just abandon that trade. I think it's a low risk entry point around the 200 period. Drop below this area, the 50 can cross below the 200. We could get that bigger pullback right here. Now, don't rule that out. That's still possible. I still think we get the divergence. But again, I want to remain open-minded. I want to remain flexible. So again, I could easily get stopped out or end up abandoning that trade, that buyback of the 75%, still holding that 25%. And again, longer-term core position, I'm doing absolutely nothing, ignoring short-term price fluctuations, and I'll be looking at selling that at much higher levels on into the summer or on into the fall somewhere. I play this wave one and 75% back here, and if we rally up, I'm going to sell into the rally surrounding the 113 to 115,000 area. Like I said, we may even try to go higher, but I'll be watching to see if my short-term trade play works out here. Again, about the swing trade with the double bottom pattern, when we drop below the 200, when we down over here hit Bitcoin's average price in the daily time frame. I talked about all of that. Those are great opportunities. Played out beautifully. We've rallied up 50%. Caught most of that move. Trying to see if we do get the one more push higher. Turn down. I'll abandon my swing trade if we look like we're going to get the bigger sell-off. If we the strength get back above the cloud, back above the 50 here, I'm going to sell into the rally. The whole thing, not just 75% this time, the whole thing, but then still hold my core position. Two things. I'm holding a position, the core position, longer for multiple months. The shorter term swing trade is just trying to play the swing move higher here. So if we start seeing a push below the 200 period, either abandon the trade or end up getting stopped out. We'll see what happens. How I'm playing it. Not a recommendation to buy or sell Bitcoin. I'm just sharing with you what I'm doing. I'm sharing with you my trading strategies, longer term with multiple months of where I think we're going. I do think Bitcoin's going much higher, but also the short-term swing move. I'm not recommending anybody do that. It's not a recommendation to buy or sell Bitcoin at any time, but wouldn't it be nice if it was? Now, I've been talking about these divergences that I think are setting up on the awesome oscillators, Bitcoin and Bitcoin futures. After the bottom here at Bitcoin futures, we bounced off the 200 period after dipping below it. The Bitcoin price dipped below the 200 and bounced off Bitcoin's average price. Here we got above the 20, above the 50, the 20 is a blue line, and we're bouncing off of that, or trying to. We're consolidating after this pullback to the 20 period moving average. We saw a bearish reversal of conditions. See a little red arrow? You see a little cloud flipping to red. We closed below the lower boundary there of the cloud, and that's giving us these red bars on the awesome oscillator. The MACD's rolled over, and again, likely going to see a divergence right here on the awesome oscillator. You're likely going to see a divergence on the RSI with Bitcoin in the daily time frame, and on the awesome oscillator with Bitcoin itself. We had divergences that have given us this pullback with Bitcoin, and I'll show you that oscillator on Bitcoin. But wanted to show you here with futures because you got a beautiful divergence that is likely setting up. The awesome oscillator went slightly higher. Bitcoin actually had a divergence there. Here we had almost two equal peaks or slightly higher on the second peak. But I think you're going to see here, probably before the weekends, maybe tomorrow, Friday, there's going to be a phone call between the two presidents surrounding trade tensions, President of China, President of the United States. that give us a pop? Could that complete the counts I'm looking for? Could that take us to that 113 to 115,000 area I've been talking about? And we finish peaking out there above the 112,000 peak that we got. I think you're going to see the green bars here. I think you'll get a few days of a rally, and then we could either peak at some point next week or on into the following week with the Fed on the 17th. I think you're likely going to see this divergence develop. You could see the same thing on the MACD here. You could see a divergence develop there. I think the stochastic will recycle back up, form a divergence as well. We had a divergence with the stochastic with this peak right here. I think you'll build upon that and get another one. So that's what I think is going on. I think these divergences are about to set up, but then I think that they will mark a top. So here we have Bitcoin futures daily chart. Look at IBIT, the IBIT ETF. You've got the same thing going on. Again, slightly higher peak right here, just like Bitcoin futures. And again, you've got the bearish reversal of conditions here. The IBIT ETF, the signals look identical to the Bitcoin futures. So again, I think you're going to see the green begin to show up, and I think you'll get a lower high, and I think you'll complete that divergence. And you could see the same thing on the MACD, and as I said, the stochastic. These indicators look identical to the Bitcoin futures. So the IBIT ETF, same thing here. IBIT ETF bouncing off the 200, getting back above the 50, the green line, back above the 20 here. The 20's acting as support right now. Down with Bitcoin a little bit. We're down with the IBIT ETF. I think we're still going to probably push to a new high, but then I think we'll top out with this divergence and get a bigger pullback to form the right shoulders. I think IBIT and the Bitcoin futures, I think it's going to get something that looks like this in all likelihood, but I think you're going to get the green, and I think it's going to be a peak there. Here we got some green, followed by some red, and then some more green that ended up marking this this top here with a negative divergence. I think you're going to see something very, very similar to that. But I think rather than a triple divergence as we had here and then here, this triple divergence, I think it'll just be simple divergence. Bring back the Bitcoin futures, you can see again the same exact thing happened here, this triple divergence. Bitcoin had similar pattern of the Bitcoin price. So again, I think you're likely going to see this divergence develop here. We go into, I think we'll begin to rally here at some point this week to get the green bar showing up, likelihood, but then you could peak either next week at some point. We're going to get the CPI on Wednesday, the inflation data, this phone call between the leaders of China and the U.S., rally with that, and then sell off with something else. Do we sell off? Inflation's going to eventually tick back up. The money supply is increasing. Inflation will eventually, it's at a 4-year low right now. Does it tick up and we start seeing a freak out about that? Does a rally drag out to the 17th or so? I believe the 17th is a Fed day, the FOMC meeting, to drag out to the following week. But I think in the next week or the week after that, you could see this divergence complete. It could begin and take us to a new high as soon as this week. We're going to get some kind of pullback in June. If we look at the awesome oscillator on Bitcoin, you've got the same thing. Now, Bitcoin actually had a divergence right here with the recent high that we've had, and that was the high that gave us this pullback, the divergence that gave us this pullback, really. This trend line, excluding the shadow here, and we just slightly overthrew it. We had that trend line around 11,000 and some change, and we hit 12,000 and we began to pull back. I think you're going to see the same thing here. I think you're going to see, we're still in positive territory, but we've got red bars. I think you're going to see this divergence develop as we go into next week, maybe with the CPI or, again, the following week with the Fed. But I think you're going to see this divergence end up setting up and playing out. I think that's going to take us up to this 113,000, and we're taking our time reaching it, so it might be closer to 114,000, but I've been talking about this 113,000 to 115,000 area or so, and again, it might go a little higher, 116,000 to 121,000, which I've talked about, the area between the 61.8 fib and the 78.6 fib extensions. I think you're likely going to stall between 113,000 and 115,000 or so. If we take our time, maybe 113 to 116, somewhere in that area. But you can overthrow the trend line. This trend line, I believe these highs are likely pointing to the next high. So again, you could go up to 113, 114, just slightly above this 112,000 area, and end up getting a divergence completing on the awesome oscillator, the RSI, and other indicators. And then you could get this pullback towards the 200, as I've been talking about, for the right shoulder. So again, I think the awesome oscillators are suggesting we're still going to get the one more pop higher, but then I think we get a bigger pullback. If I, again, zoom out, again, you had a very similar situation, that triple divergence right here on the awesome oscillator, just like what we saw with Bitcoin futures, just like what we saw with the IBIT ETF. So again, here we've had the divergence with Bitcoin. I think it's going to evolve into this triple divergence. A lower tower right here with Bitcoin on the awesome oscillator, futures, and the IBIT ETF, it went slightly higher, almost equal peaks, almost a Class B divergence, as I've said. Equal peaks on the indicator where price moves higher. That's a Class B divergence. Class A is where the indicator makes a lower high, price makes a higher high. That's a Class A divergence. It has a higher probability of playing out. So again, this is what I think is going to happen, but keeping my eye, look on that awesome oscillator here and futures and IBIT. I think it's going to show some green bars on the awesome oscillator, likely before the weekends, and maybe by tomorrow, maybe here before into the weekend or on into the weekend. I think you're likely going to see these green bars show up. I'll try to fit this in, but I want you to see the bars here. Again, we're kind of consolidating, going sideways, watching to see if our recent low holds. That what took us back towards the 200 period on the 4-hour chart. Do we rally up here and then we get this pullback for the right shoulder? I think it's going to play out that way. I think you're going to rally. I think the awesome oscillator is suggesting it's likely going to play out that way. I think the RSI is suggesting it's going to play out that way, that you're going to end up seeing these divergences. And we're going to go up here and we're going to move likely above the high at 112,000. It's going to go like they did over here. Right here, we had this move and they go, it's a breakout, and we pull back. Bitcoin conference, and it was associated with a downturn. I told you this bullish cross could be associated with a top or topping process. Here, it marked the top. And again, I personally believe we're going to get one more push higher to get these divergences and then get a bigger pullback and a Fibonacci retracement. I think we'll end up dropping back below 100,000, probably back into the low 90,000 range, mid 90,000 range or something like that. But I think you're going to finish this head formation of the inverse head and shoulders pattern. Again, I'm the only one talking about this. When we come up here, the herd, the moon boys are going to be, here we go! And then we're going to get the big rug pull. And then when we come down here, the moon boys are going to start talking about what I'm saying right now is setting up. I predict things before they happen. I predicted the bottom with the tariffs, and I called the very day of the bottom, because I have good indicators, and I told you we were going to bottom at 74,000. I was correct. I predicted this rally. Over here, I told you we were still going to get another pop higher, predicting we were going to go up to these trend lines. I was correct, but I still don't think it's done. I personally believe this is a wave 4. We're about to get this final push higher for wave 5. That's what I'm saying. We're going to hit this trend line or maybe overthrow it, and then I think you'll get that bigger pullback. Now, I'm looking for a 13 count to complete, and maybe even a 9 count. But I think the 13 count is going to complete here surrounding this top. And I'll show you this up close in a second. But just here zooming out, had a 13 count mark the December top. We had a 9 count the day after the January top. Our turning points. Here we had a 9 count, but it only marked a counter trend back up to the 50-period moving average. And we got a trend extension. We got a 9 followed by the 13. The 13 marked the bottom, but so often is the case, sometimes you get the count and then you go beyond it, overthrow it. And here sometimes they mark the very day of the top or the day after, surrounding the top. Other times you get the count and then you go beyond it, as we did for the bottom, for their double bottom pattern. And again, that's likely what you're going to see here. We've had 2 attempts now to get the 13 count. We had it show up, but then by the close, it wasn't above the bar from 2 bars ago, so it failed. As we got the 913 here, so I think we have a 913 here. You have the perfected 9 signal here. Over here, you don't have it. You don't have it here. Bar 8 and 9 were not the high of the count like it was over here. We got the 9 count, but bar 7 was the high of the count. So it wasn't a perfected signal. It's still corrected sideways. And then we got the trend extension. And that's where we're at right now. We got the trend extension and we're pulling back. After the 9 count, we started the 13 count at this lower bar. The lower count underneath is a 13 count. We got up to bar 12. It's a high bar of the count. Started counts down. We've started counts back up and back down again and now back up. They keep failing. We're up to bar 3 to the upside right now. That count could complete. But as what could happen is if we close above the bar from 2 bars ago, and we made attempts to do it in the last couple of sessions, but it failed. It didn't close that way. So we had a 13 count complete, but then it went away by the end of the session. You got to be above the bar from 2 bars ago. We're kind of going sideways here. We had bar 12. I think you will get bar 13 on our way back up. You'll get bar 13 when we close above the bar from 2 bars ago. So you could see it immediately here in the next day or 2 or 3. Pullback completes here. That could also lead to a 13 followed by a 9, a double sequence count sell signal. That is the case. We'll get the 9 count the day before the CPI data next Wednesday. We'll get the 9 count completing on the 10th. We'll get the CPI data on the 11th. So next Tuesday, we could complete a 9 count if we can continue, if we can get above the bar from 4 bars ago. Right now, we're up to bar 3. So we got to get a rally here tomorrow to get bar 4, to get bar 5, 6, and 7, and 8, and 9, all the way into the weekend, on into next Tuesday. You could get a 9 count. You could see the 13 and do what we did over here. You get the 13, and then you still end up going lower. Now, the 9 count may not complete. You just get the 13 like over here. We got the 13. We went lower. There was no 9 count that completed to the downside. Well, we got to bar 5, and then that was a reversal bar. The day of the launch of the tariffs with the pausing of the reciprocal tariffs, every day of the launch in the U.S. I'm just telling you, we could complete the 13, still go higher, still go to the 113 to 115,000 area towards this trend line, get a divergence, or like I said, even overthrow it, go to 116, 117, and all the way up to 121,000. I don't think we go that high. More likely we stall between 113 to 115,000, maybe 116 if we're taking our time reaching the trend line, but I don't think we're going to go much higher than that. I think we'll likely stall 113 to 115,000 area, or maybe 116,000, and get this divergence. Long about this, then everything turned bearish and we get the bigger pullback right here, right now, and this is the neckline. My guess is you're going to get the divergence and then the bigger pullback. I think it'll be a fake out breakout. This was a fake out breakout right here. It's a breakout, and we push back down. The dotted red line, we pushed above the previous high from the January peak over here. We pushed above that high, and everyone's, oh, it's a breakout, here we go, and pull back. We get the Bitcoin conference and we sell off and we pull back. I think it's more likely this divergence scenario sets up and then we get a bigger pullback to dash hopes even more, dash the herd's hopes. And again, we're seeing the whales and the institutions. Oh, they're buying, it can't go down. And yet we want another bite of the apple. End up pushing it back down, accumulate Bitcoin at lower prices. And that's what the herd fails to understand. This whole sell-off was about over here. The whales want to buy Bitcoin at a discount. And again, we're probably going to get the pullback here. They're going to get that right shoulder, going to do the same thing, and they're going to accumulate even more. This is likely going to give us, one more pop here in June and then some kind of pullback in June. And maybe this goes on into Independence Day to, July 4th here in the United States. It drags out a few weeks. We'll see what happens. So 2 things with this chart. I'll be looking for the completion of a 13 count and likely overthrowing the 13 and probably trying to complete the 9 count as we go into next week, or maybe it drags on out into the Fed meeting the following week. think that I said the 17th earlier. It's the 18th, and that's 2 weeks from today. Does it drag out that long? I don't know. That Divergence has a good shot at forming that going into this week. Maybe we get it by the end of the week or on into next week at some point. And again, we stalled at the 61.8 Fibonacci, the extension from the previous advance. The 78.6 Fibonacci extension is up here at 121,000. I think you're coming up to this trend line, and again, you could overthrow it a little bit going into this golden pocket area where I think you'll likely stall. Guesses again, it's going to be about 113 to 115, but we could overthrow that a level. And again, the upper end of the Fibonacci range here, the 78.6 Fibonacci, 121,000, just under 121,600. Open-minded to reaching that level, but I doubt it. I think it's more likely you're going to come up here, get this divergence, hit this level, go slightly higher, complete the divergence, and get this pullback. So I think, again, 113, 114, 115, likely stall the advance and complete wave 1. Wave 2 for the right shoulder. I'm going to show you these Fibonacci extension levels. Now, we have bearish momentum right now. The trend signals are mixed. Some of them are bullish. Here, still bullish. Other indicators, still bullish. Other trend signals have turned bearish. This means that we're either going sideways or down on some of the bearish ones. But the fact that we still have some bullish ones could just mean this is a smaller pullback, and we're still going to get the divergence on the RSI and the awesome oscillator, which I think is very likely. Bitcoin is flat. Bitcoin is flat right now. It is doji at the moment. There's still plenty of time left in the session, many hours left, but we've broken down from this rising wedge. It could be evolving into a channel, but if we rally back up to this level right here, you could see a divergence develop not only in the awesome oscillator, but here on the RSI. We hit the 50 level, and we're trying to recover. But meanwhile, we're getting the 10 crossing the 20 period moving average. If we can get above those moving averages, you can see the divergence develop, but good chance we stall moving slightly higher, again at that 113 to 115,000 area. I still think you're going to end up getting a divergence, again, almost a Class B divergence here with these two peaks, better divergence on the awesome oscillator at this peak right here, as we've seen in this video. Again, I still think you're coming up here, and then I think you'll get the bigger pullback to the 200 period moving average, and I think you'll get this right shoulder. Bottom pattern played out beautifully here. That's marking pretty much the head formation that I think is either concluded or about to conclude. I have the guts to tell you what I think. I don't think it's done. Told you what that could be it. I drew that trend line. About that could possibly be it, but I've got mixed signals right now. So again, I've drawn the scenarios. Okay, one is that we just keep going and we get the right shoulder right here, right now. The other scenario is we pop up, we get the divergence on the RSI, you get the divergence on the awesome oscillator, and then you get the bigger sell-off to the right shoulder. I think that scenario is more likely. Again, continue to watch the RSI, continue to watch the awesome oscillator. I think you'll see the same thing. Again, kind of a Class B divergence right here, marking this peak at 112,000. I think you'll see the MACD end up turning back up, and I think you'll end up getting this divergence. Wrong about that, then I need to see more signals turn bearish. I need to see really bearish things begin to happen if we're going to get that bigger sell-off right now. So I think a divergence on the RSI and the awesome oscillator are very, and even the MACD as we looked at, are very, very likely. We're seeing a contraction with the Bollinger Band. The Bollinger Band is dropping. The upper, the lower is rising. They're contracting. This is telling us something's getting ready to happen. Okay, when you see these contractions, have a very similar situation like what we had over here. We had a sell-off, and we had some volatility, and we began to see line here go to neutral, and we came back towards it. To see this contraction with the Bollinger Bands, and it eventually led to this push to the upper Bollinger Band where we topped out. And we got topping signals. This is a December top. Came back to this level, and we ended up getting a double top pattern like we had our double bottom pattern. We had a double bottom pattern over here, and we had a very similar situation up here at the top. I think with the contraction with the Bollinger Bands, it's suggesting we're going to go back up. The upper band is in the low 111,000 area. I think we're going to overthrow it, hit 113 to 115,000 or so above this high right here, move above that upper Bollinger Band, and I think you'll end up getting a divergence. And I think you'll see something very similar to what we had over here. And then I think you'll see some kind of reversal and a pullback to the line. The line is orange and going sideways, rather than turning down in red like it did over here with this sell-off. Same thing happened over here. It went sideways, suggesting that this rally was going to fail, and then we ended up going to a lower low and getting our double bottom pattern. So again, I think it's very, very likely the top is going to be above the upper Bollinger Band. We did not get a topping signal there. Still think we can get one around the 113 to 115,000 area. And again, beautifully marking the December top and the January top and the bottom over here and some of these other bottoms. Sideways move. This was a sideways correction. Nothing up here. So my guess is, and we're going back and forth. We're getting the background and the signals are going from red to positive to green, and now trying to go back to red. But you're still going flatlined right here with line representing the trend. And right here, as we formed the top, it went neutral. You're seeing the same thing happen right now. So that's what makes me think we're going to pop up above that upper Bollinger Band. The trending signals going back and forth right here. Again, the green line is now turned orange, so it's gone neutral. We've dropped just below it. I think you're going to try to pop up above that upper Bollinger Band. In all likelihood, I think that's going to be the case. And you can see, again, the contraction of the bands. Before we got the bottom, I was talking about the contraction of the bands back over here, how we had this rally back up, and I told you that that could have been something similar to what we had over here, where we had this contraction, hit the upper boundary of the band, hit the upper boundary of the band, and then we came down, made a lower low, but then we bottomed and we went higher. And again, we saw that same thing. I talked about this at great length in detail. Tightening of the bands right here that gave us that sell-off. Tightening of the bands right here that gave us this bottom. And then the bands tightened up again as this powerful rally began, after I correctly called the day of the top and predicted that we get this massive rally, predicting that we would get new highs. The herd told us, no, it's over. Season canceled. 74,000 was a major support level. The 50-week moving average, Bitcoin's average price, horizontal support, but all of that at great length and detail at the bottom. Well, the fact that we didn't get a sell signal, we are seeing the Bollinger Bands contract, we're seeing trend turn to neutral, causes me to believe we're going to get another pop higher to get the diversions on the RSI and the Awesome Oscillator. Just my personal opinion.